Yes, indeed. You are tuned in to the one and only The Sick Podcast Steeler Crazy. As always, I am Jay York Football. Alongside of me from sunny South Florida with the shades on, Mr. Mic'd Up Sports One. And we have a great guest on today. The Steelers, well, Mason Rudolph is QB1 right now. Not a lot of changes since the last podcast. How are you today?
I'm good. It's draft season. It's arrived, and you're right. Aaron Rodgers has not arrived yet, but Steelers quarterback talk heating up, man. Shedeur Sanders, Jaxson Dart. Who knows what's going to happen? It is incredibly interesting and frustrating for a lot of us as well. But I know our guest today will have a lot to say when it comes to the NFL draft and just the NFL in general. We're super excited.
Yes, indeed. Shane, take it to the end zone.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Steelers Crazy.
Aaron Smith shields. Flacco, Polamalu takes it home. Super Bowl 43. Pittsburgh might be bound for that thanks to number 43.
The sickest Pittsburgh Steelers podcast. Sports entertainment like no other. It's gonna be sick.
All right, our guy is always locked in and, of course, locked on, host of the Locked On Jags podcast and a big part of the Locked On network. We're big fans over here for sure. It is our guy, Tony Wiggins. Tony, what's going on, man?
What's happening, gentlemen? Y'all ready? I know y'all about drafted out like me, man. I done so many mocks, man. It's crazy. It's like
Mike's the king of mocks.
Yeah, I can do them now without even looking at a big board. I can probably go 6 rounds, man, without even looking at a big board. That's just how much you do this over and over again, trying to see if something different is going to happen. And then on draft night, nothing that you thought was going to happen actually ends up happening. So it's a good time.
I'll tell you what, at this point, I get sick of reading the first round names over and over and over. I'm starting to try and familiarize myself with like these 4th and 5th and 6th rounders because I'm so sick of hearing about this top 10, 20, like at this point, it's just ad nauseum. Did you guys do your Locked On draft? I know you do with every other Locked On host, right? Like
it'll be out soon. We're bound by secrecy a little bit, but I think it's coming this week. It's a very, very interesting process. A lot that goes into that. There's a lot of work behind the scenes too. It's not just us getting together picking 32 teams. They do a really, really good job with the network of making sure that thing is rolled out properly in a nice way. And I'm looking forward to everybody seeing it. You know, it's different, though, when you're picking, say, 5th like Jacksonville as opposed to in the early 20s like Pittsburgh, because so much has to happen before you get to that point. And people think that you're going to get the pick right. You were mentioning earlier, you said something about, man, these names in the first round. You know, it's even more depressing about that sometimes is when you look back historically, you know the people that you have listed in the first round, like half of them are going to bust out, man. They ain't even going to be who everybody thinks they are. And it's going to be dudes in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th round you're going to look up. And 2 years from now, those guys are making all of the noise. So we kind of go through this process, and we never really learned that the fact that we're going through it, it's almost like we're faking it till we make it because, one, you don't know what the teams want to do. But then, two, even if you did know what they were going to do, if you look up 2 years from now, they get it wrong. So it's just crazy, man, how we get so locked into something that we know we're going to get wrong anyway.
It's definitely an exact science. And, I mean, I think a lot of people last year definitely had Brian Thomas Jr. way behind Marvin Harrison Jr. And I might take Brian Thomas if I had to redraft.
Now, see, I was one of those that didn't. I was one of those that didn't know. I said, well, let me correct it. I said, obviously, as a prospect, Marvin Harrison Jr. is there. I said, but to me, Brian Thomas Jr. was not that far behind Malik Nabers, and he was not that far behind Rome Odunze, but I didn't think Nabers was that far behind Harrison. They were so fortunate to get Brian Thomas Jr. where they got him. It's not even funny.
No doubt. All right, here's I'm going to tie this into the Steelers because you're probably wondering how I'm going to go ahead and do that. I want to talk about defensive tackles because we both have a need at that position, a big-time need. Obviously, if you run through a lot of Jags mock drafts, you're seeing that reflected at pick 5, and for the Steelers, you're seeing that at 21 as well. I'm assuming you've watched a lot of Michigan tape, or watch Mason Graham, watch some Kenneth Grant. Steelers are definitely going to have interest in Grant. Heck, maybe the Jags will too. But Graham obviously you see mocked a lot. Tell us a little bit about these Michigan dudes, because the Steelers fan want to know just as much.
I like them both. As an exercise for us, obviously Mason Graham, even from a positional standpoint, whether you agree as an evaluator or not, a 3 technique that can disrupt things is going to be placed at a higher value than a nose tackle, right? So from that perspective, you understand it. You also understand that there are a couple of outliers as nose tackles in the league, and it starts with Dexter Lawrence and Vita Vea. It's like you don't care that they're nose tackle. They are 3 down players, especially with Dexter Lawrence getting like 21 sacks in the last 3 years. That means he's also pressuring while in a 3-4 playing the 0. So those things are super, super impressive. For the Jaguars, they need Dexter Lawrence way more than they need a 3 technique. But their 3 techniques aren't good enough to not take Mason Graham, in my opinion. And I think when you're picking in the top 5, you also have to pay attention to positional value and get something there that you usually can't. Can't find a left tackle in free agency to save your life. You're not going to find the 3 technique who is all world in free agency to save your life unless he's in his 30s. So you have to pick something as if you're not going to be there again, so you get something that you can't ever get somewhere else. And that's why I think the Jaguars probably value Mason Graham more. But if you ask me if I could choose a current NFL player that fits this roster without being crazy, because anybody can take Jamar Chase, right? If that fits this roster realistically, the number 1 player in my book is Dexter Lawrence. And the player that's closer to Dexter Lawrence is Kenneth Grant. But he doesn't play a position, in my opinion, where Kenneth Grant was, Vita Vea was taken 12th, and I think Dexter Lawrence was 17th, or vice versa. So you don't traditionally take a guy that is a 330-pound nose tackle in the top 5. So that's why I'm going the other way. But there's something else for y'all to be concerned about. The concern is now that because of Derek Carr's injury, another team might take a quarterback earlier than you expect. That could push Kenneth Grant down to Pittsburgh. The other thing is it could make everybody start acting all desperate and feel like they have to jump in front of the Steelers. So it's really, really weird how Derek Carr's injury in New Orleans has kind of changed the outlook for everybody.
It's a great point because, with the Shedeur smoke surrounding Pittsburgh and obviously the interest in Jaxson Dart, if the Saints go quarterback at 9, those D tackles start to, trickle down a little bit more. But you're right. Who the heck knows what they could do? They could trade out of that spot too. Maybe the Steelers – go crazy and mortgage the future if they like Shedeur that much. Jordan, go ahead. Jump in, man.
Yeah, so this was a perfect segue into our next question. Obviously, there's a big question mark right now. It seems like the Vikings are pretty much out on Aaron Rodgers. I hate saying that name on this podcast. We said the same thing a few years ago when we wouldn't say Kenny Pickett anymore, and here we are. He's back in the AFC North. But just kind of talk about where you see that saga continuing, and do you think that the Steelers and Mike Tomlin are confident going into next season with Mason Rudolph as QB1? And I think that they'll draft a QB, but do you think that he's saying that, or is it just kind of smoke and mirrors?
No, I think he means it. I think he wants Rodgers, because every time I think about Aaron Rodgers and Mike Tomlin, I think about them looking at each other and giving each other the what up, bro? You know what I'm saying? And I think a lot about that. And then people wonder, okay, did you see how he acted in New York last year and all on TV and all that? Look, man, I'm not going to think Mike Tomlin can't handle anything if he could handle Antonio Brown. I don't care. You can stick Charles Manson up there, and I'll be like, oh, Mike will deal with it. Ain't no problem. You can stick Kanye in quarterback, and I'll be like, oh, Mike will handle it. Ain't no problem. Because after dealing with some of the stuff he's dealt with, Aaron Rodgers might look like one of the little rascals compared to Antonio Brown.
Yeah.
But still, an organization like Pittsburgh that – I'm not telling y'all nothing y'all don't know. I'm saying this so y'all understand that I understand. I'm 55 years old, dude. They've had 3 coaches my whole life. They've had, and all of them have won Super Bowls, right? So I was telling Chris and Matt Williamson also, it used to be wide receiver and edge rusher or outside linebacker that Pittsburgh always seemed to have one. But when I think about it, they always seem to have a center too. My whole life, they've had like 5 people play that position. So I'm saying that to say this. It doesn't seem like an organization that gets it right that often, and where Mike Tomlin has never had a losing season, and in my life, they've never had a coach who didn't win the Super Bowl, that they screw around and fool around with this dude who's talking about going over in the cave with his legs folded and smoking something, and that you would even go through all of this unless you were telling him, look, man, come here and you can be yourself, but if you want to win, this is a place where you can do it, because I think they're telling him the truth. The thing is with me, though, I'm just not used to Pittsburgh being associated with foolishness that we all know about. We didn't know Antonio Brown was acting a donkey in the locker room, but we now know this, and Pittsburgh is usually the organization that kind of wipes their hands with that kind of stuff. So I'm a little shocked that they're in this position, or either they're playing chess and they're going to take a quarterback and just don't want anybody to know it.
Don't forget about Le'Veon Bell.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I ain't forget about him, but it's hard for me to think about him when he was there with Antonio. That's like mentioning a light rainstorm when there's a hurricane on there. I mean, Antonio Brown's a piece of work, man. So that's very, very hard for me to deal with. And the fact that they had Debo, who was a good person, but Debo, the natives could be restless around somebody like that. I just think it's a really, really good place to play. I think it's a really, really great, fabulously run organization all the way from the Rooneys all the way down. And it's just hard for me to imagine them being entangled with this soap opera that you're going to see on McAfee every single week.
Yeah, I agree. Before I throw it back over to Mike, I wanted to kind of touch on the QB class. Jaxson Dart's obviously been a name that's been popping up, could possibly snag him in the later rounds. We always like to get, a different take on it. We have a lot of local guys on here. What do you see like him as, coming in as an NFL quarterback as far as like the intangibles?
Good question. Okay, we can open the game manager versus difference maker thing a little bit. And I only open a little bit because I'll tell you what it means to me. I think the less organized your organization is, that you need a quarterback who is superlative, every team has its warts, right? Every team has the one thing that they don't like to do. If you force them to do this, they ain't going to like it. You know what I'm saying? Like everybody has their little kryptonite, but the better your quarterback, you kind of play with that kryptonite. Like, so what? And I don't want to piss y'all off here, but when Lamar Jackson came into the league and people said he couldn't throw, yeah, okay, I'm gonna run there, and he's gonna run. He's gonna be so good at it that it ain't gonna matter that he doesn't do that little thing that everybody says he can't do, and then eventually he learns how to do that. Just like Josh Allen learned how to be accurate, right? But until I learn that thing, I'm gonna whoop you with this all day long. And some people are good enough to do that, and that's what a great quarterback does for a team that doesn't have all of their T's crossed and their I's dotted. I think the more your team is structured a certain way, the less a quarterback has to have all of those special effects. So that's why Brock Purdy can be good in San Francisco, and he would also be very good in Pittsburgh. And that's why I think Shedeur Sanders would be good in Pittsburgh. I worry about Jaxson Dart because I saw him in big games, and he was the reason they lost. And they didn't lose very many, but the ones I saw, he was the reason they lost. So floor is a little bit lower, ceiling's a little bit higher, but we said that about a lot of quarterbacks. Yeah. I'm just a firm believer in the fact that bad teams ruin good players way more than bad players ruin good teams.
Good way to look at it.
Gainesville's close to you. I remember Jaxson Dart had that tough interception. That was a game.
Awful. It was on first down too. And see, you're right in my wheelhouse because I root for Florida State, so I root against Florida. It was first down, and they were inside the 30-yard line and just threw a ball up for nothing. And see, those are the things that get you killed in the NFL, because the NFL is the wrong place to learn how to not do that kind of stuff. You need to not do that kind of stuff before you get to the league, because that's like learning how to ride a motorcycle on a 1300cc Harley. No, it costs too much. You wreck that, you better go buy a Raggedy bike before you sit on a Harley Davidson. And the NFL is just not a place for you to learn and not do boneheaded things.
My wife went to Florida State, so I'll give you a go.
There you go. There you go.
I got you. All right, I'm just curious because this popped into my head whenever you're talking about Josh Allen becoming, more of a passer, Lamar Jackson becoming a better passer. Can Jalen Milroe get there?
I think so. I was just telling somebody this earlier. I was on with Kevin Ostreicher, who is Locked on Ravens.
Great.
He's
been on our show.
Yeah, we did the NFL show today. And here's the thing. Kevin said that Anthony Richardson needed more time. And when he got done, I said, well, let me add a caveat to that. If he was going to be successful, he would have needed more time to do that, and they didn't give it to him. It doesn't mean that because if you gave him more time, he was ever going to get it. The only way he was going to get it is if you took your time with him, though. That's the way I feel about Jalen Milroe. I don't think it's just about going slow with him. I think it's about going slow, but getting it right. And I think a real good example of that is Jalen Hurts. He didn't have to rush, didn't have to play right away, but because he did leave Alabama and did go to Oklahoma and show a little bit more of his efficiency in the passing game, when he came into a team like Philadelphia, whose team is constructed with great defense and a great offensive line and built around toughness, they were allowed to have him grow into his role to the point where all of the things that you want a quarterback to do became second nature to him because he's a hard worker. That's what I think you need to do with Milroe, is what should have been done with Anthony Richardson. It doesn't guarantee success, but it does guarantee that you're on the track, that the only way success is going to come is if you do it that way. When you rush these quarterbacks, and not just the guys that run, even other quarterbacks have been rushed. And they've been, usually when quarterbacks get drafted, they're being overdrafted because they're such a priority. And the teams that are overdrafting them are the teams that are most desperate because they're bad. And when you're bad and you bring a young quarterback into a team and he was already overdrafted, it's like a double whammy when you're also a bad organization and that guy doesn't have a chance to really grow into the role that he's supposed to grow into. And people forget this. Patrick Mahomes was allowed to grow into the role in Kansas City because of the infrastructure of that team and the fact that they had Alex Smith.
Well said. I'll let you spit on this before we get you out of here. Trevor Lawrence and the Steelers, that was never a thing, right?
Absolutely not. No, Trevor Lawrence and the Steelers wasn't a thing. Trayvon Walker getting traded wasn't a thing. I knew that was a joke when people were putting out that you could get Trayvon Walker for a third-round pick. Tell me the last time you seen a dude get 21 sacks in 2 years and be one of the best run defenders in the league at setting the edge, and he went for a third-round pick when he still has 2 years left on his contract. I was like, it's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. And then the Jaguars gave him the fifth-year option just the other day, and Liam Cohen almost started crying when they asked about why'd you extend him. He was like, you kidding me? As soon as you see him and you talk to him and you look at the tape, you know damn well why you extend a guy like that. So, that's not a thing. And then the Trevor Lawrence, it was never a thing anyway. But even if it was, let me give you all this. Even if it was, Trevor Lawrence extension doesn't kick in 2026. They've already given him some of the money. So you mean to tell me that they're going to let him leave here with $70 million and he ain't never done nothing for it? Doesn't make sense.
Right.
His extension starts in 2026. He's playing this year on his fifth-year option. I don't understand why people are sitting there thinking that the Jaguars gave him the extension and now they're going to take a dead money hit on cash they've already given him to get what? The 21st pick in the draft? That's a joke.
Yep. Came out of thin air, that's for sure.
Play that out fast.
Yeah, clear that we did that months ago, but we never had a Jags host on, so wanted to ask you that for sure. Hey, we know the draft is coming out, the mock draft. We're excited about that. What else you guys got going on? Where can everybody find you? Hit us with all the good stuff.
Everywhere, man. Wherever you get your podcast. If you watch them, if you listen to them, we're on every single platform. Also on Amazon Fire TV. Every day, our motto is your team every day. There's a Jaguar podcast for every single team in, I think, all of the sports in pro and college each and every day. And then I also host Locked on NFL, which is also a daily show. It's a very interesting concept. We use clips from all of the Locked on shows from around the league to kind of give us something, to give us something to not only talk about, sometimes to poke fun at, laugh at, because My show is called The Barbershop, so that's what it is. We try to find people that throw shade at other teams and all kinds of stuff. But for the most part, it's 28 to 30 minutes each and every day, straight up, packed out NFL talk and action. And we love to do it from the local experts, man. So make sure you check that out wherever you get your podcast. And I do appreciate y'all allowing me to say that. Thank you.
34 years master barber, correct?
That's it, baby. 30 Air Force vet. Before that, I started.
I like that. My dad was in the Air Force. Respect.
Yes, sir. I started cutting hair in the barracks. I got stationed in North Dakota. I used to cut my hair in high school. And I realized that, I got a certain texture that people that live in North Dakota don't deal with very often, And so I started cutting it myself. And when I did it myself, people asked me who cut your hair. So I was doing that most of the time. Then I went to Germany in 1990, cut my hair in the barracks, my first day there, and then walked to get something to eat. And I had 20 people ask me if I could cut theirs too. So from that point forward, man, I started being a barber. And
the rest was history.
3 years, after 3 more years, I did 7 years altogether. I came home in 1993. And from 1990 to 93, I made more money cutting hair than I did anything else. So doubled back into a career in sports broadcasting in the year 2001. And I've been doing both things for a long time. And get this, most people didn't know that Amp Wiggins, the barber, was also T Wig from the radio station. And for about 25 years, it was just like people finding it out. I had people sit in my chair criticizing the radio guy, not knowing it was me.
No way.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny as hell. That's why
You're like, yeah, you're right. That guy.
Yeah, I'll be like, I don't want to curse on here, but I'll be like, nah, he don't know what the hell he's talking about, man. Don't worry about that. And some of my buddies in the barbershop would be sitting there about to bust out laughing because I can't stand that dude. I'd be like, man, you know what? I know a lot of people that hate that guy. And it's me the whole time. So it was pretty fun. I gave that up. My body started breaking down on me, and I'm able to do this full time now.
That's great. Well, we're really appreciative of your time. Keep up the good work, and we'll be tuning in.
No doubt about it. Thank you guys, man. The Sick Podcast, y'all the truth. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Appreciate you, man.
Appreciate you.
Duval,
baby, man. That was great stuff. It felt like I was sitting in a barbershop with you, Tony, talking sports, chopping it up, NFL draft. Man, those are the best kind of podcasts. Laid back, just you and your guys.
Good energy.
Hanging out, good energy, good vibes. And that makes for a good show 10 out of 10 times.
Yeah. Well, we'll be back later this week with another great guest. We're bringing on these draft guys, like we said, the best in the biz. And, it's that time. April's here before you know it. Coming up pretty fast. So make sure you subscribe wherever you get your podcast. As we always say, 365 days a year, Steeler coverage, the Sick Podcast, Steeler Crazy. Shane, take it away.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Steelers Crazy on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.